Any ideas?
Hey guys, just thought I'd do a live stream. Was kind of interested to see the press conference that was supposed to start at 1 o'clock, so it's kind of already late. It's 3, it's not 3, sorry. It's 1:34 right now, and the press conference hasn't even looked like it's starting. Right now, I'm just tuned into CTV. Just give me a moment here. Just tuned into CTV online. So if you want to, again, tune into it without my voice, go on there, ctvnews.ca. And we'll just go over there just so I can show you that. Just give me a second. There you go. So as you can see, they're still waiting for the arrival of Justin Trudeau and Mike Pompeo. They were also meeting with Chrystia Freeland. How useful she was, that remains to be seen. I'm interested in this because we have two Canadians that are detained in China. That were detained in, I believe, December of last year. Of course, with the SNC-Lavalin scandal that took place, that kind of overshadowed this. But that was a big scandal back in, I think it was December. And again, it did get overshadowed in the new year with the SNC-Lavalin and Jody Wilson-Raybould being removed from her position. But that's another thing, and a very important thing. But we'll focus on this for today. Since we have some time, why don't we just see the earlier meeting, which is just basically Pompeo. I think it's here on C-SPAC, so I'll play that. Just give me a second. This is very brief and very fake.
Lots of chances to chat earlier. I know you and Chrystia have spent a lot of time talking. We have a lot to discuss just ahead of the G7. Lots of global issues. We will, of course, be bringing up the plight of the two Canadians in China and both thanking the Americans for their support on that issue and continuing to talk how we move forward on that. We'll also be talking about trade and how important it is to continue to create a global trading system that works for everyone, including for our countries. But lots of things to talk about, lots of issues to address, and I'm very pleased to have Mike Pompeo here today. Je suis très content d'accueillir Mike Pompeo, le secrétaire d'État à Ottawa. On va discuter évidemment des détenus en Chine, on va discuter des enjeux internationaux comme le commerce international, le commerce entre nos deux pays. Mais on va continuer à parler des enjeux qui sont importants pour nos deux pays et continuer cette amitié entre le Canada et les États-Unis.
Thank you. It's great to be here. Thank you for hosting me here today. I know you're heading off tomorrow for an important set of meetings. I know we'll talk about some of those same things today, and I want to reiterate, we need to get the USMCA wrapped up. We need to get it done. We need our parliaments both to ratify them. It'll be good for people all across North America. Please do know that our team is focused on helping those two Canadians be released. China needs to honor the commitments it's made to the world, and it's our expectation they'll do so, and we're working on it diligently. It's wrong that they're being held. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup tout le monde.
So with that, the audio was pretty low, even on the CTV feed earlier. Again, they can't really get close, so it wasn't just that. Let's see if the press conference has started. And again, I don't even think we're close. Just one note here I'm just going to highlight, but here's the security. Press are slowly rolling in. It's a little bit more positive now. Before it was only, I think, these two, so I think we'll be shortly underway, I hope. Just give me a second. So yeah, basically, we really need Canada to step up. Do I have confidence in that? Not really, not with Justin Trudeau, who treats the world stage as a playground. He has no formal experience in diplomacy, and that's been shown time and time again with China, with India, with Saudi Arabia. The list goes on with the United States. And the one funny thing that I find with Pompeo's visit and this whole situation, again, Canada can't stand up on its own, relying on Donald Trump and the United States. Yet we mock him day after day after day, and we use that, not we, I shouldn't say we, but the Trudeau government, the Liberal Party, and Liberals themselves, social justice warriors, mock Trump left, right, and center. He's basically the first story of every Canadian broadcast news. And yet we're asking him essentially to stick his neck on the line for two Canadians, which I'm sure he will do out of good graces. But at the same time, if somebody was mocking you day after day after day, would you stick your neck out for that person? So here it come. I think I'm going to be quiet. I'm going to turn up the volume. Here you go. And let me switch to the scene. Just give me a second. Shoot. There we go. I can't hear anything.
Go ahead.
There. It's not just me.
Oui. À mon collègue, le secrétaire d'État Mike Pompeo, merci d'être venu à Ottawa aujourd'hui et pour les discussions fructueuses que nous avons eues ce matin. Before our meetings here at the beautiful National Arts Center, Secretary Pompeo and I visited the National War Memorial, the cenotaph symbolizing the sacrifice of all Canadian Armed Forces personnel who have served Canada in time of war. It was a reminder for me that so often when Canadian men and women serve, they do so alongside our American friends and allies, whether in the First and Second World Wars, in Korea, in the First Gulf War, in the Balkans, or in Afghanistan. Canadians have been proud to stand with you. Today, Canada and the United States are indispensable allies in the defense of North American soil and, through NORAD, of North American airspace. And of course, we're allies in the world. In NATO, we're working together to deter Russian aggression in Eastern Europe, with Canada leading a robust multinational battle group in Latvia and the US doing the same in Poland. NATO is the cornerstone of the North Atlantic security and defense, particularly now as we wrestle with old and new threats to North American and global security, including violent extremism, cyber attacks, and efforts by malign actors to undermine our democracies. Today, alongside our American allies, Canadian Armed Forces ships and maritime patrol aircraft are deployed under Operation Neon to ensure sanctions are imposed against North Korea. And the Deputy Commander of the United Nations Force in Korea is a Canadian. En tant qu'amis et alliés, le Canada et les États-Unis collaborent de bien des
Anybody else notice she always talks like she's rhyming and always like very lyrical?
Et de nos pays. Nous travaillons ensemble pour soutenir la paix et la sécurité, le développement durable et la croissance économique. Geography and history have given us a special and enduring trading relationship that has been a significant contributor to jobs and prosperity in both of our countries. $2.6 billion worth of goods and services move back and forth between our countries every single day. And as we both move forward in ratifying the new NAFTA, Canadians and Americans will continue to benefit from our unique and profitable economic relationship. The lifting of 232 tariffs in both directions earlier this year has had a further positive effect on trade between Canada and the United States. Depuis la fin de la Seconde Guerre mondiale, le Canada et les États-Unis ont mis sur pied un système qui défend la liberté.
It wasn't the Canada deal. Canada wanted all this social justice stuff, and basically, U.S. and Mexico signed their own deal, I should say, and then Canada, at the last minute, scrambled to sign it on without the Canadian interests at all, really. Never really transparent on what kind of deal was a good one.
La crise au Venezuela. Hong Kong. Le soutien à l'Ukraine face à l'agression russe en cours. La situation au Cachemire. L'Arctique, le Japon et la Corée du Sud. La voie vers la ratification de Nouvelle-Alena. I do want to take this opportunity to thank you personally, Mike, for the hard work you did, which contributed to a good outcome on NAFTA and 232. Made a big difference. And I also want to thank you for your continued support for Michael Kovrig and Michael Spavor. And I want to take this moment of giving thanks to our American friends to recognize Ambassador Kelly Craft. She's been with us today, and today is her last day in Canada. So thank you for giving us such a great ambassador, and thank you very much, Kelly, for your hard work here. We've really appreciated it. The bottom line is that Canada and the United States have enjoyed a strong partnership for all of our shared history, and we are committed to strengthening this partnership in the future. We are neighbors, we are friends, and we're an example to the world of what a strong bilateral relationship should be. Now, Mike and I also have one special connection. At ASEAN in Bangkok last month, he publicly celebrated the victory of my hometown basketball team. It turns out that as a former Wichita congressman, he is a fan of Fred VanVleet. And like all Torontonians, I am a fan of every single Raptor. So,
way to be professional.
Mike, for visiting us today. Merci.
Incompetence.
Thank you. It's great to be here. It's great to be in Canada. My first official visit as Secretary of State. I had important and good meetings both with Chrystia today as well as with Prime Minister Trudeau. I thank them profusely for their solidarity with the United States on a wide range of issues. Chrystia mentioned many of them, but North Korea and Venezuela in particular, Canada has been a fantastic partner. And we discussed ways that the two nations could invest in our shared future together very broadly. More particularly, we discussed the urgency of advancing the United States-Mexico-Canada agreement through our legislatures. Politics cannot, indeed must not, get in the way of this monumental achievement for either of our nations. Every day, 400,000 people, in addition to the $2 billion plus you described, transit our shared border. And Canada is the primary market for more than 30 American states. The USMCA will ensure that this trade continues and strengthens even further, creating opportunities on both sides of our border and in Mexico as well. And if we've gotten the ball this far, we can get over the line together too. We have much to gain when we succeed and a great deal to lose should we fail. Our security partnership is just as strong as our economic partnership. Last year we celebrated the 60th anniversary of NORAD. Canada has also been an unwavering supporter of our pressure campaign and our subsequent diplomacy with North Korea. And with respect to Venezuela, which I mentioned briefly earlier, both of our nations have helped galvanize the support of over 53 other countries for the Venezuelan people to take back their country. As I discussed with Prime Minister Trudeau, as well as with Foreign Minister Freeland, the United States stands with Canada in the face of China's arbitrary and unacceptable detention of Canadian citizens. We're grateful, too, that Canada followed the rule of law and obtained and detained Huawei executive. Even as we stand shoulder to shoulder on these many areas of common ground, we can do more, and I know that we will. In Eastern Europe, we must continue to stand with our NATO allies in the face of ongoing Russian aggression. That's why we also discussed today the importance of Canada meeting its commitment, its Wales pledge of 2% of GDP on national defense. It can set a powerful example for all of our European partners in our collective defense. I also stress the importance of Canadian efforts in defense of the Arctic. Your expansive Arctic territory is the back door to the continent, and the Arctic's strategic importance, including its vast resources and shipping lanes, are of increasing interest to the entire world, especially to China and to Russia. The Trump administration is eager to work with Canada to increase our shared defense in the region. In closing, when it comes to the economic and security relationship between the United States and Canada, the only thing outweighing our accomplishments is our potential. We can seize this potential in our very time, and today's meetings were a positive step towards doing so. Thank you, Chrystia.
Hopefully there's a question and answer.
Secretary Pompeo, I understand you're
Good.
supporting our government in the case of the 2 detained Canadians in China. I'm wondering what specifically you've committed to. And to Minister Freeland, the steelworkers are denouncing the decision to lift tariffs on the illegally dumped steel from China in British Columbia and the LNG projects. I'm wondering if you can talk about why that decision was made in light of the 2 Canadians detained in China.
So I'll try to take the first one. While I can't talk about everything that we've done, we started with immediately being very clear about the inappropriate nature of this unlawful detention of these 2 Canadian citizens. We spoke about it early, and we speak about it a great deal. President Trump mentioned it directly in his meeting with President Xi Jinping. I was there when he did it. He made unambiguous America's concern about this inappropriate behavior. And then we've done we've engaged in other diplomatic activity, trying to help make the case for the release of these 2. And we'll continue to do that until such time as they're home and return to their families.
And let me just say thank you for that, Mike. And as we said, we did discuss the detentions of Michael Kovrig and Michael Spavor today, and we have discussed them many, many times. When it comes to steel, let me just start by saying our government is tremendously supportive of our steel and aluminum sectors and our steel and aluminum workers. As I mentioned in my opening remarks, one of the successes that Canada and the United States have enjoyed in our relationship earlier this year is coming to a point where we were able to lift the 232 tariffs in both directions. And that has added to the prosperity of both of our countries, both of whose economies are growing strongly. And that has been really good news for Canadian steelworkers, and that is a really good thing. When it comes to the LNG project, this is one of the biggest investments in Canadian history. It is going to create a great number of new jobs in Canada. And it's an investment that Canadians can be proud of because it will contribute to the fight against climate change by making available Canadian LNG to replace coal in a lot of countries. So it's a very important project. It's something we are glad to be supporting and facilitating. Thank you.
She talks to everybody like we're 3 years old.
Alors,
Oh God.
Je voudrais commencer en encore une fois remerciant le secrétaire Pompeo pour l'appui du Canada et pour le travail qu'il fait personnellement, que les États-Unis font pour Michael Kovrig et Michael Spavor. Et je voudrais aussi souligner que
Just gonna pause or mute her while she's in French. But it didn't really sound like they're doing a whole lot other than issuing China stern warnings that this is inappropriate, which isn't going a whole long way. Just recently, China has flapped back and told Canada to basically mind its own business, stop using this tactic, or there will be consequences. So, you know, I really thought I would hear more concrete actions or anything. And where's Trudeau right now? I thought, again, with 2 Canadians detained, he would show some strength, especially with an election coming up. But that doesn't seem to be the case. He's MIA. Maybe there's a gay pride parade that he needs to attend. Actually, it is Pride in Ottawa, so he might be doing that. But all right, let's go back.
projet pour l'environnement mondial. Merci.
Not that there's anything wrong with that. Oops, I paused it.
Thanks very much. Mr. Pompeo, I'd like to ask you about Venezuela to start off with, please. Do the recent talks between the Trump administration and members of Mr. Maduro's regime signal any kind of shift in U.S. policy towards Venezuela?
especially given the lack of movement in the government there in the last 8 months. Would the United States recognize as legitimate an election with Mr. Maduro on the ballot? And Ms. Freeland, if you'd like to respond to any of that about Venezuela, I'd be happy, especially if you could comment on whether your government is thinking still about freezing all Venezuelan assets in Canada, as the United States has done. And Ms. Freeland, you talked a little bit about the Canadian citizens who are detained in China. I'm wondering if you've asked the United States to drop its extradition demand of Ms. Meng to help secure their release. Thank you.
So the first question you asked, the predicate, is wrong. But the answer to the substantive question is no. There's been no change in U.S. policy. We have consistently said that there cannot be free and fair elections so long as Maduro is on the scene, and we continue to work towards achieving that end on behalf of the Venezuelan people.
Don't necessarily agree with regime change, but
on Venezuela, if I could add, as Mike and I both said, it's an issue that we discussed today, that we have discussed in the past. Canada recognizes Juan Guaido as the interim president of Venezuela, and it is clear to us that Maduro and his regime are illegitimate.
Why?
I would urge people
Why?
to take a look at Michelle Bachelet's excellent report on the abuses being committed by the Maduro regime against the people of Venezuela. And it's really important to support their absolutely legitimate desire for democracy and human rights in their own country. Canada is very much engaged in our work as a member of the Lima Group in supporting Juan Guaido and the people of Venezuela. We have very strong sanctions in place against the Maduro regime, and we also believe that it is important to explore all possible paths to a resolution of the situation. With that in mind, I'll be traveling next week to Cuba for a bilateral meeting with the Cuban foreign minister. Canada has a long-standing and good relationship with Cuba. We work with Cuba on many levels, and one of the issues that we have been discussing with Cuba is Venezuela.
Check out Eva Bartlett's coverage.
Strong set of sanctions in place. We are constantly considering ways that our sanction regime should be updated, and actually that's an area where we've worked very closely with the United States in using Magnitsky sanctions all over the world, very much including Venezuela.
I was trying to say, check out Eva Bartlett's coverage.
Oh, I'm sorry. So when it comes to the cases of Michael Spavor and Michael Kovrig, as I said, we thank the U.S. for its support. And I think it's worth pointing out, maybe especially to our American visitors, that a great number of Canada's allies around the world have spoken out against these arbitrary detentions, and we thank all of those allies as well. Just last week, Heiko Maas, the German foreign minister, was in Canada on a bilateral visit, and he reiterated Germany's support and also was very clear publicly that Germany does raise this issue in its meetings with China. When it comes to the extradition request from the United States of Ms. Meng, Canada and the United States have an extradition treaty which has been in place for a long time. Not quite longer than I have been alive, but pretty close.
Be professional.
Border is the longest unmilitarized border in the world, and as Mike and I have both emphasized, we just do a lot of business. A lot of stuff happens across that border, and we need to have an extradition treaty in place for both of our countries to function well and for that border to work. When it comes to Canada applying our extradition treaty with the United States, it's not a political decision. The application of the extradition treaty is done under delegated authority by Canadian public servants, and that is as it ought to be. Extradition is a criminal justice matter. It is not a political matter. And the case of Ms. Meng is currently before the Canadian courts, as it ought to be. As for the U.S. case against Ms. Meng, I think that's a matter for the U.S. and the U.S. criminal justice authorities.
The question was
took the Chinese line. Your question connected these two things. These are deeply different. The arbitrary detention of two Canadian citizens in China is fundamentally different as a human rights matter, as a rule of law matter. These are fundamentally different matters than the Canadian decision to use their due process and the rule of law to behave in a way that's deeply consistent with the way decent nations work. And so when you ask this question, you connect them up. That's what China wants to talk about. They want to talk about these two as if they are they're equivalent, as if they're morally similar, which they fundamentally are not.
He's pretty professional compared to a lot more professional than Freeland, obviously.
Bonjour, Madame Freeland. Je voudrais savoir ce que vous répondez au gouvernement chinois qui vous a ciblé directement, vous a nommé à la télévision d'État en vous demandant de cesser de vous immiscer dans les affaires intérieures de Hong Kong, de la Chine, et ne craignez-vous pas, parallèlement à ça, que votre dénonciation vienne compliquer encore davantage le sort des deux Canadiens que Pékin détient toujours arbitrairement? Et Monsieur Pompeo, I'm not sure if I got your point about Meng Wanzhou quite well. I just wanted to know if you see her as a bargaining chip in the U.S.-China conflict, trade conflict.
The question to Freeland was about Hong Kong and just...
Go ahead.
Concernant les liens entre la Chine et le Canada, le Premier ministre, dans son excellent discours hier, a expliqué clairement la position de notre gouvernement. Et je serais très content de répéter et de souligner la position que le Premier ministre a exprimée. Le Canada et la Chine ont des liens de longue durée. L'année prochaine sera le 50e anniversaire.
It's like she lectures us every time she speaks.
Le Canada et la Chine. C'est une relation dans beaucoup de domaines. Des domaines d'éducation, le domaine économique. Nous travaillons en étroite collaboration concernant l'environnement. Nous travaillons dans l'OMC. Je pense que j'ai déjà expliqué notre position concernant Michael Kovrig et Michael Spavor et aussi l'extradition de Mme Meng. En ce qui concerne Hong Kong, le Canada a un intérêt particulier. Il y a 300 000 Canadiens à Hong Kong et c'est naturel et important pour le Canada de faire attention à ce qui se passe là. Le Canada aussi croit que l'idée d'un pays et du système est une importante idée pour Hong Kong et la Chine. Également, les garanties de l'Assemblée pacifique pour les gens de Hong Kong. Et c'est ce que le Canada a dit, c'est ce que le Premier ministre a dit hier. Je voudrais aussi souligner que ce que le Canada a affirmé samedi était une affirmation conjointe avec l'Union européenne, avec Federica Mogherini. Je veux souligner ça pour expliquer que le Canada travaille en collaboration avec nos partenaires, avec nos alliés. C'est important pour le Canada dans le monde de toujours défendre nos valeurs et notre intérêt national, et nous allons continuer de faire ça.
No. I mean,
Est-ce que vous
you
pouvez
asked,
répéter en
if it's a bargaining.
we'll have them watch
You asked if it was a bargaining chip. But
He's
it's a
not
legal
amused.
process by the United States Department of Justice, designed to bring someone who we believe we have sufficient information to bring back to the United States under the agreements between the United States and Canada. Very straightforward.
Thanks. Washington Post, John Hudson.
Hi, thanks, Mr. Secretary. There are reports that the U.S. has decided not to cut billions of dollars of foreign aid in a process known as rescission. Is that the right decision when it comes to balancing our budgets versus our interests, in your view? You also mentioned that you made some progress with your Canadian counterparts on the North Korea issue. I wanted to ask about South Korea's decision to stop an agreement to share military intelligence with Japan. Is the U.S. making efforts to bring the two allies together? And Minister Freeland, President Trump has expressed support for Russia to rejoin the G7, would be the G8. Do you support that idea?
There's nothing wrong with talking to people.
The question with respect to the rescission, the president's still contemplating, although we were working on it even this morning. I've been engaged in meetings. There may be an outcome, a decision process. What I have consistently said with respect to every penny the State Department spends, including our foreign assistance budget, is we've got to get it right. We've got to make sure we are using it in ways that are effective, that American interests are represented in the way we spend that money. That certainly includes our foreign assistance program, but every employee, every single dollar we take away from the taxpayers, I want to make sure we're deploying properly. And this discussion that we're having around rescission certainly is part of that bigger discussion. On your second question, I actually spoke with my South Korean counterpart this morning. We're disappointed to see the decision that the South Koreans made about that information sharing agreement. We're urging each of the two countries to continue to engage, to continue to have dialogue. She was with the Japanese foreign minister yesterday, I believe, our time. They were working to put this back together. There is no doubt that the shared interests of Japan and South Korea are important, and they're important to the United States of America, and we hope each of those two countries can begin to put that relationship back in exactly the right place. I have experienced it for my time here as a Secretary of State. It's absolutely valuable, not only to the work you mentioned in the context of North Korea, but important the work we do all around the world. They are both great partners and friends of the United States, and we are hopeful they can make progress together.
And we are hopeful too.
So unprofessional.
On Russia and the G7, that is an issue that Canada has a very clear position on, and that I personally have a very clear position on.
She's banned from Russia.
Early in my career as a journalist, I lived and worked in Moscow. At a time when Russia was building a democracy and a market economy. And it was entirely appropriate as part of that process to admit Russia to the G7. That was the G7 community of nations extending a hand to a democratizing, reforming Russia and saying, the doors are open to you to join this important, I would say, essential group of like-minded nations.
Why does she lecture us all the time?
And then
with nonsense.
Russia grossly violated international law by invading and annexing Crimea, and added to that with the continued war in the Donbass. This was an incredibly serious step. It is the first annexation of territory of a European country by another European country since the Second World War. And when you think about the carnage of the Second World War, and we referred today to the work our countries did after the Second World War to build a rules-based international order, to make sure that couldn't
A new
happen
world
again.
order.
Russia's violation of international law in invading Crimea and annexing it, in continuing to support war in the Donbass, is something we cannot allow to stand. And that is why Russia was expelled from the G7, because of that action. So I think all of us would be delighted to welcome a Russia which sought again to be a member in good standing of our like-minded group of countries, a group of countries committed to the rule of law, a group of countries committed to democracy. And the way for Russia to show that it wants to do that is to leave Crimea and to end the war in the Donbass. It's very simple.
Says a simpleton.
Le Canada a une position absolument claire concernant la Russie et le G7. Et c'est une position...
Just gonna mute that, but she does know who she's right next to, Pompeo, and the States. Albeit aside, you know, how many illegal wars has the United States started and not so much ended after World War II. I know the countries goes on and on and on. Afghanistan, Iraq, they had a hand in Libya, they had a hand in, well, a little bit of Syria. Well, not a little bit, but they did fund a lot of the other side. But that's, again, another story, and for somebody a lot smarter to explain.
Groupe des nations. Et je pense que c'était la bonne chose à faire. Mais, après quelques années, la Russie a fait une chose qui va absolument contre toutes les règles, toutes les valeurs du G7, avec l'invasion illégale et l'annexation illégale de la Crimée, et avec la guerre qui continue dans le Donbass. C'est une grave crime contre l'ordre international fondé sur les règles. Je pense que tout le monde sera très heureuse d'inviter la Russie d'être membre encore une fois du G7, une fois que la Russie va partir de la Crimée, va partir du Donbass. C'est très simple. Okay, I think that's it. Thank you very much, everyone. And thank you very much, American friends, for visiting.
Be professional. So embarrassing. Okay, well, I did think that Justin Trudeau would have shown up as well. I mean, Pompeo was meeting with him as well. We have, again, two detained Canadians. Just give me a second here. Let's see, and just, yeah. So what do you guys think? Again, I really think that we need more solid action for the two Canadians that are detained in China. I haven't heard anything that they're doing besides saying that this is wrong, which isn't going to free any Canadians. It's not going to move the Chinese for any action. So, you know, I really think we need to do something sterner words. Justin Trudeau's got to pick up the phone, cut ties to China, hurt them some way economically, raise some issues with the World Bank. I think that's a possibility as well. Just got to do something. We need some real leadership. Lucky for Canadians, we do have an election coming up in October. Actually, I think the notice was 60 days out, maybe yesterday. So again, Canadians have a choice to make. And again, I don't know how much longer we can keep going with this inaction. I don't know how much longer the two Michaels can go on in detainment. I mean, they're not in good conditions in China. They're I believe, 24-hour sort of not torture, but always has lights on him, constantly sleep deprivation, that sort of thing. Anyways, it's not pleasant. I don't think you or I would want to be in his place, and it's not right for any country to do that. And yet again, we've heard basically crickets from the Liberal government, from Chrystia Freeland here. Again, she basically nursery rhymed through the press conference and barely answered any questions, swerved, and didn't really mention whether these were bargaining chips, basically just backtracked and pivoted on that question, as the Liberals tend to do. So I think I'll leave it there. I need to get some sleep. I have a newborn. I've been up all night. I just thought I'd tune in, help you guys tune into this as well. Leave a message in the comment field. Follow me on Twitter, Facebook. The banner was up before, so I'm sure you saw it. Thanks for joining. Take care.